You know that moment when your entire world crumbles in the span of 5 seconds? Yeah, well, mine happened on a Tuesday evening while I was standing in my own kitchen, wearing that ridiculous Kiss the Cook apron my wife bought me for our anniversary 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me then, and it sure as hell isn't lost on me now. My name's Jake Morrison, and I used to think I had it all figured out. 34 years old, decent job as a marketing director for a mid-sized tech company in Austin, Texas, nice house in the suburbs with a white picket fence, the whole American dream package. And then there was Rebecca, my wife of 7 years, the woman I'd moved mountains for, the one I thought was my soulmate. Boy, was I wrong. It started like any other Tuesday. I'd gotten home around 6, rolled up my sleeves, and decided to surprise Rebecca with her favorite meal, honey glazed salmon with roasted vegetables and that fancy wild rice she always raved about. I'd even stopped by the florist on my way home and picked up a bouquet of white roses, her favorite. The whole setup took me nearly 2 hours, but I wanted everything to be perfect. See, we'd been going through what I thought was just a rough patch. Rebecca had been distant lately, always on her phone, working late more often than usual. I figured it was stress from her job at the marketing firm downtown. So I thought maybe a nice home-cooked meal and some quality time together would help us reconnect. I was just putting the finishing touches on the table, candles, the good china, even broke out the wine glasses we got as wedding gifts, when I heard her car pull into the driveway. My heart actually skipped a beat. Pathetic, right? After 7 years of marriage, I was still getting excited about spending an evening with my wife. The front door opened, and I could hear her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Jake, I'm home," she called out. But there was something off about her tone. It sounded rushed, distracted. "In the kitchen, babe," I called back, adjusting my apron one last time and checking my reflection in the chrome surface of the refrigerator. I wanted to look good for her. Rebecca walked into the kitchen, and I have to admit, she looked stunning. She was wearing this black dress I'd never seen before. Form-fitting, elegant, probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her blonde hair was styled differently too, more voluminous, and she was wearing makeup that seemed way too elaborate for a day at the office. "Wow," I said, grinning like an idiot. "You look absolutely gorgeous. What's the occasion?" She barely glanced at me, instead checking her phone for what had to be the 20th time in 30 seconds. "Oh, this old thing? Just felt like dressing up today." I gestured toward the dining room with obvious pride. "Well, perfect timing. I made your favorite, honey glazed salmon, roasted vegetables, the works. I even got those white roses you love so much." Rebecca finally looked up from her phone, and for a split second I saw something in her eyes. Guilt? Annoyance? I couldn't quite place it, but it made my stomach twist. She walked over to the dining room, her heels clicking against the floor with each step. I followed behind her like a puppy, waiting for her reaction. She stopped at the head of the table, looked at the spread I'd prepared, the candles, the flowers, the carefully arranged place settings. "Oh," she said, her voice flat. "This is cute." Cute, not beautiful, not romantic, not thoughtful, cute, like something a child would do to impress their parents. But I pushed down that little voice in my head telling me something was wrong. "I thought we could have a nice evening together," I said, pulling out her chair. "We haven't really talked in weeks, and I miss you." Rebecca checked her phone again, and I could see her fingers flying across the screen, typing out what looked like a text message. "That's sweet, Jake. Really? But I can't stay long." My heart sank. "What do you mean you can't stay long?" "It's Tuesday night. We don't have any plans." She finally put her phone down and looked at me, but there was no warmth in her eyes. None of that spark that used to make my knees weak. "I'm going out." "Going out? Where?" "Just out with some friends from work. We're having drinks to celebrate closing the Johnson account." Something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. Rebecca had never been much of a social drinker, and she'd certainly never mentioned anything about celebrating work victories with her colleagues before. Plus, she was dressed like she was going to a high-end restaurant, not some casual after-work drinks. "On a Tuesday night?" I pressed. "And you're wearing that dress to grab drinks with co-workers?" Her jaw tightened slightly. "What's wrong with this dress?" Nothing's wrong with it. It's just, I don't know, seems pretty fancy for work drinks. Rebecca picked up her purse and checked her reflection in the hallway mirror. Well, I like to look nice. Is that a crime? I felt like I was walking through a minefield. Every word I said seemed to irritate her more. Of course not. I just thought maybe we could… Jake! She cut me off with a tone I'd never heard her use before. Sharp. Final. The dinner looks cute, okay? Really cute. But I'm going out with my friends. We'll do this another time. There it was again. Cute. And the way she paused before saying friends sent a chill down my spine. How late will you be? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. I don't know. Don't wait up. She was already heading toward the door when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her whole face lit up. The kind of expression I hadn't seen her give me in months. A genuine smile, eyes sparkling, cheeks flushing slightly. Actually, she said, typing back quickly, I should probably head out now. Traffic, you know. But here's the thing about being married to someone for 7 years. You learn their tells. Rebecca only got that particular look on her face when she was excited about something. Really excited. And she only bit her lower lip like that when she was thinking about something that made her nervous in a good way. The same way she used to look at me. Who's texting you? The question slipped out before I could stop myself. Her head snapped up, and for just a moment, I saw panic flash across her face. What? Your phone. You've been checking it constantly since you got home, and whoever just texted you made you smile bigger than you have in weeks. So I'm asking, who is it? Rebecca's cheeks flushed red, but not from embarrassment, from anger. Excuse me? Are you monitoring my phone now? I'm not monitoring anything. I'm just observing that my wife seems more excited about whoever's texting her than she does about spending an evening with her husband. Don't be ridiculous, Jake. Am I being ridiculous? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you couldn't care less about this dinner I spent 2 hours preparing. You're dressed like you're going on a date, and you're practically glowing every time your phone buzzes. She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her internal struggle. Part of me hoped she'd sit down, apologize, and we'd work through whatever was going on. But the other part of me, the part that had been picking up on all these little signs for weeks, knew better. Look, she said finally, I appreciate the dinner. I really do, but I made plans and I'm not going to cancel them just because you decided to surprise me without asking first. Without asking first? I'm your husband, Rebecca. I shouldn't have to ask permission to cook dinner for my own wife in my own house. Our house, she corrected, and something about the way she said it made my blood run cold. Right, our house, the one we bought together, the one where we're supposed to be building a life together. Rebecca grabbed her keys from the counter, avoiding my eyes. I'll be back later. How much later? I don't know, Jake. Later, she was halfway to the door when I called out, Rebecca, wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. Is there something you want to tell me? The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. I could hear the grandfather clock in the living room ticking away the seconds, could smell the salmon getting cold in the dining room, could feel my heart hammering against my ribcage. Finally, she turned around, and the look on her face was one I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, like she was looking at a stranger. The dinner was cute, Jake. Really cute. But I'm going out with my boyfriend now. Just like that. No build-up, no gentle letdown, no attempt to soften the blow. Just pure, unfiltered truth delivered like a slap across the face. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, the words echoing in my head. My boyfriend, not friend, not colleague, not some elaborate lie about work drinks. My boyfriend. Your what? I managed to croak out. Rebecca actually had the audacity to look annoyed, like I was being slow on the uptake. You heard me. Your boyfriend. The words tasted like acid coming out of my mouth. You have a boyfriend. Yes. And you're married. To me. For now. For now. 2 little words that felt like a dagger between the ribs. How long? I asked. Does it matter? It matters to me. She sighed like I was being a massive inconvenience. 3 months. 3 months. 3 months of lies, of her coming home late, of her being distant and distracted, of me thinking I was going crazy for noticing all the little changes. 3 months of me trying harder, being more romantic, cooking special dinners, bringing home flowers, planning surprise date nights that she always seemed too tired for. Who is he? Jake, don't. Who is he, Rebecca? His name is David. He works at my firm. David. Of course it was someone from her work. That explained all the late nights, all the team meetings, and client dinners that I'd never questioned because I trusted her. Because I was a fool. How old is he? What is that? How old is he? 28. 6 years younger than me, 6 years younger than her. I felt sick. And you're in love with him. It wasn't a question. I could see it written all over her face. The glow, the excitement, the way she kept checking her phone. All the things she used to do for me. Yes, she said simply. The honesty was almost worse than the betrayal. At least if she tried to lie, tried to spare my feelings, I could have held on to some illusion that she still cared about me. But this casual admission, delivered with all the emotion of someone reading a grocery list, was devastating. So what now, I asked. You just walk out that door and go have dinner with him while I sit here with this romantic meal I prepared for my cheating wife. Don't call me that. What? Cheating, but that's what you are, Rebecca. You're a cheater, a liar, a cheating liar who's been playing house with me while screwing some 28-year-old from your office. Her face flushed red again. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You met some young guy at work, got caught up in the excitement of an affair, and now you've decided your husband of 7 years is just an inconvenience to be disposed of. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Please explain it to me, because I'm having a hard time understanding how my wife can stand in our kitchen, wearing a dress that probably costs more than most people's rent, and casually mention that she's leaving me for her boyfriend. Rebecca's phone buzzed again, and instinctively she glanced at it. The same expression crossed her face, that look of anticipation and joy that used to be reserved for me. He's waiting for you, triumphant, I said. Jake, go ahead, read it. I'm sure it's very important. She hesitated for a moment, then looked at her phone. I watched her face transform as she read whatever message young David had sent her. A smile spread across her lips, her eyes softened, and she actually giggled. Giggled, like a teenager with her first crush. You know what the worst part is? I said. It's not even that you're cheating on me. It's that you clearly haven't been this happy in months, maybe years, and I was too stupid to realize it wasn't because of anything I was doing wrong. It was because you'd already checked out of our marriage. She finally looked up from her phone. Jake, I never meant for it to happen this way. But you're not sorry it did. She was quiet for a long moment. No, I'm not sorry. At least she was honest. Brutally, devastatingly honest. So what's the plan? I asked. You file for divorce, take half of everything, and ride off into the sunset with David? We haven't talked about specifics yet, but that's the general idea, I suppose. I looked around our kitchen, at the granite countertops we'd saved up for 2 years to afford, at the custom cabinets I'd installed myself one weekend, at the little herb garden she'd planted by the window that I'd been carefully maintaining even though she'd lost interest in it months ago. And David knows you're married. Of course he knows. And he's okay with dating a married woman. We're not just dating, Jake. We're in love. There it was, the final nail in the coffin. Not just dating, not just having an affair, but in love. Head over heels, planning a future together. Can't wait to start their new life kind of love. Her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't even try to hide her reaction. She smiled, typed back quickly, then looked at me with obvious impatience. I really need to go. Of course you do. Can't keep young David waiting. Don't be like this. Like what? Upset that my wife just told me she's leaving me? Angry that you've been lying to me for 3 months? Hurt that you're standing here checking your phone every 30 seconds while delivering the news that's going to destroy my life? You're being dramatic. Dramatic, right. Because finding out your wife is cheating on you and plans to leave you is just another Tuesday evening occurrence that shouldn't warrant any emotional response. You're right, I said, untying my apron. I'm being dramatic. Here you are, looking absolutely stunning, about to go out with the man you love, and I'm making it all about me. How selfish of me. She narrowed her eyes. Are you being sarcastic? Would I do that? Rebecca grabbed her purse and checked her reflection one more time in the hallway mirror. We'll talk about this later. When? I don't know. Soon? Tomorrow? I don't know, Jake. David and I were thinking of going away for the weekend. Of course they were. Probably some romantic getaway to a bed and breakfast in the hill country. The kind of place I used to take her for our anniversaries. The kind of place she'd started making excuses not to go to. Well, don't let me keep you, I said. Have fun on your date. She paused at the door. Jake, I know this is hard. Do you? Do you really know that this is hard? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been planning this conversation for weeks, maybe months. You've already emotionally divorced me, moved on, fallen in love with someone else. This isn't hard for you, Rebecca. This is liberating. She didn't deny it. She just stood there, key in hand, looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out what. Go, I said finally. Your boyfriend is waiting. And she did. She walked out that door without another word, leaving me standing in our kitchen with 2 plates of perfectly prepared salmon, a bouquet of white roses, and the ruins of what I'd thought was a solid marriage. I listened to her car start up, heard her back out of the driveway, watched through the window as her taillights disappeared down our street. Then I stood there in the silence of our house, my house now, I supposed, and tried to process what had just happened. My wife of 7 years had just casually informed me that she'd been cheating on me for 3 months, was in love with her affair partner, and was leaving me. And she'd done it with all the emotional investment of someone canceling a dinner reservation. But here's the thing about moments like these, they have a way of clarifying things. All those months of feeling like something was off, of second-guessing myself, of trying harder to win back affection that was already gone, suddenly made perfect sense. I wasn't going crazy. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being played. And Jake Morrison doesn't like being played. I walked into the dining room and looked at the romantic dinner I'd spent 2 hours preparing. The candles were still flickering, casting shadows across the white roses. The salmon was getting cold, but it still smelled amazing. The wine was perfectly chilled. Too bad to let it all go to waste. I poured myself a glass of wine, a nice Chardonnay I'd been saving for a special occasion. Well, this was certainly special, just not in the way I'd imagined. Then I sat down at the head of the table and started eating. The salmon was perfect, flaky, sweet from the honey glaze, with just the right amount of seasoning. The vegetables were roasted to perfection, caramelized on the outside and tender on the inside. Even the wild rice had that perfect texture Rebecca always raved about. She was right about one thing. It was cute. Cute that I'd thought a home-cooked meal could compete with the excitement of a new affair. Cute that I'd believed our marriage was worth fighting for. Cute that I'd been so naive. But as I sat there eating my dinner for one, washing it down with wine that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a week, I realized something important. I wasn't just hurt. I wasn't just angry. I was furious. Rebecca thought she could just waltz out of our marriage without any consequences. She thought she could humiliate me, betray me, lie to me for months, and then skip off into the sunset with her boy toy while I sat here feeling sorry for myself. She was wrong. I finished my meal, blew out the candles, and walked upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom now. Rebecca's side of the closet was noticeably emptier than it had been that morning. She'd been planning this for a while, gradually moving her favorite clothes and personal items out of the house, probably to David's apartment. I sat down at my computer and opened a new browser window. Time to do a little research. David Mitchell, 28 years old, account executive at Henderson and Associates Marketing. Graduated from UT 3 years ago with a degree in communications. Single, no kids, drives a silver BMW that daddy probably bought him. Lives in a trendy apartment complex downtown, the kind with a rooftop pool and a concierge service. Social media made it incredibly easy to learn about people these days. David's Instagram was full of pictures from expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Lake Travis, and gym selfies that made it clear he spent more time working out than I did. His LinkedIn showed he'd been promoted twice in the past year. Impressive for someone so young. And there, buried in his recent posts, were pictures that made my blood boil. David and Rebecca at a wine bar I'd never been to. David and Rebecca hiking at Zilker Park. David and Rebecca at what looked like a company party, her hand resting possessively on his chest. The pictures were carefully cropped to avoid showing Rebecca's left hand, the one with the wedding ring that I'd spent 3 months' salary on. But she was wearing the necklace I'd given her for her last birthday, the one with the small diamond pendant that she'd cried over because it was so thoughtful and beautiful. Apparently, it was thoughtful and beautiful enough to wear on dates with her boyfriend. I scrolled through more pictures, my anger building with each image. Here was my wife living a completely separate life, one that didn't include me at all. She looked happy, relaxed, carefree in a way she hadn't been around me in months. And David, God, David looked exactly like what I'd expected. Perfectly styled hair, designer clothes, that confident smile of someone who'd never had to work for anything in his life. The kind of guy who probably called women babe unironically and thought wearing expensive cologne was a personality trait. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Jake, I know tonight was difficult. We'll talk soon and figure everything out. I hope you can understand that I just want to be happy. She hoped I could understand that she just wanted to be happy, as if I'd been actively trying to make her miserable for 7 years. As if our entire marriage had been some elaborate prison she'd finally managed to escape from. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Over the next few days, I threw myself into research. I learned more about David Mitchell than I'd ever wanted to know. His work schedule, his gym routine, his favorite restaurants, his weekend habits. The man was boringly predictable, which was probably part of his appeal to Rebecca. After 7 years with me, someone routine and safe probably felt like a walking midlife crisis. Rebecca came home twice during that week, both times when she thought I'd be at work. I knew because I'd installed a security system a year ago, and the app on my phone sent notifications whenever someone entered or left the house. She was quick about it, in and out in less than 30 minutes each time, probably grabbing more clothes and personal items. She never bothered to call or text to let me know she was coming. I was apparently no longer worth that basic courtesy. On Friday evening, I decided to drive by David's apartment complex. Not because I was stalking them, I just wanted to see where my wife was spending her nights instead of at home with me. The place was exactly what I'd expected. Sleek, modern, expensive. The kind of place 20-somethings lived when they wanted to impress their friends and colleagues. Rebecca's car was parked in the visitors section. I sat in my truck for about 10 minutes, watching people come and go from the building. Young professionals mostly, the kind of people who had everything figured out by the time they were 25. The kind of people who probably thought marriage was an outdated institution and monogamy was just another word for settling. I was about to leave when I saw them. Rebecca and David walking out of the building hand in hand, both dressed for an expensive dinner. She was wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, something slinky and sophisticated that probably cost more than I made in a week. David was in a perfectly tailored suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine. They were laughing about something, looking at each other with that nauseating intensity of new love. Rebecca looked younger somehow, more vibrant than she had in years. This wasn't just an affair. This was a woman who'd found her soulmate and was ready to start her new life. Without me. They got into David's BMW and drove off, probably headed to some trendy restaurant where they'd share appetizers and talk about their future together. Maybe they'd discuss the logistics of Rebecca's divorce, or when she'd officially move in with him, or what kind of wedding they wanted to have when she was free. The thought made me sick, but it also crystallized something for me. Rebecca wasn't just cheating on me, she was replacing me. Everything we'd built together, everything I'd thought was permanent and meaningful, was just a stepping stone to something better. Someone better. And the worst part was, she expected me to just take it, to roll over and accept that I'd been outmaneuvered by a 28-year-old with a trust fund and a gym membership. to quietly sign whatever divorce papers she eventually served me and fade into the background ground while she started her new life. That night, I made a decision. If Rebecca wanted to play games, I was happy to oblige. But she was about to learn that Jake Morrison wasn't the pushover she apparently thought I was. The first step was gathering evidence. Despite what people see in movies, proving adultery in a divorce case isn't always straightforward, especially in Texas. But it could definitely affect how assets were divided, particularly if I could prove that Rebecca had been using marital funds to support her affair. I started going through our bank statements, credit card bills, and financial records. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Over the past 3 months, Rebecca had been making some interesting purchases. Expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Charges at Victoria's Secret and other lingerie stores. A weekend trip to San Antonio that she told me was a work conference, except the hotel charges showed it was for 2 people, and her company's expense reports showed no business travel that weekend. She'd been using our joint credit card to finance her affair. There were other things too. Charges at a high-end salon for services she'd never gotten before, professional waxing, expensive hair treatments, manicures and pedicures that happened to coincide with her supposed late nights at the office. She'd been using our money to make herself more attractive for another man. The paper trail was damning, but I needed more. I needed concrete proof of the affair that would hold up in court and ensure that Rebecca didn't walk away from our marriage with half of everything I'd worked for. That's when I remembered something. A few months ago, Rebecca had asked me to add her new work laptop to our family iCloud account so she could sync her photos and documents across all her devices. She said it would make it easier to work from home. I'd set it up for her, but I'd also made sure that the backup feature was enabled, which meant that every photo, text message, and email on her work laptop was automatically backing up to our shared cloud storage, including her communications with David. It took me about 5 minutes to access the backup files. What I found there was worse than I'd imagined. Hundreds of text messages between Rebecca and David, going back 4 months. Not 3 months like she told me, but 4, which meant she'd been lying to me about when the affair started, probably to minimize the emotional impact of her betrayal. The early messages were flirtatious but relatively innocent. Compliments about work presentations, jokes about office politics, comments about how much they enjoyed talking to each other. But they quickly escalated. Within 2 weeks, they were texting each other constantly. Good morning messages, good night messages, play-by-play accounts of their days. Rebecca was sharing details about our marriage, intimate things that should have stayed between us, and David was encouraging her to pursue her happiness. By week 3, they were making plans to meet for drinks after work. Rebecca told me she was working late that night. I remember because I'd ordered pizza and waited up for her, worried that she was pushing herself too hard. She'd been falling in love with another man. The messages from that night made me physically ill. Rebecca describing how amazing it felt to finally connect with someone who understood her. David telling her how beautiful and intelligent she was, how lucky any man would be to have her. Rebecca confessing that she hadn't felt this way in years, that being with David made her realize what she'd been missing, as if our 7-year marriage had been some kind of consolation prize she'd finally outgrown. By month 2, they were talking about sex. A lot. Explicit messages about what they wanted to do to each other, detailed descriptions of their physical encounters, comparisons between David and me that left no doubt about who was performing better in that department. Apparently, young David had skills that her boring old husband lacked. The most recent messages were the worst. Rebecca talking about how she couldn't wait to be free, how she was tired of pretending to be happy in her marriage, how she was ready to start her real life with David. David encouraging her to file for divorce as soon as possible, suggesting that they look for a house together, discussing whether they wanted kids and when they might start trying. They were planning their entire future together while I sat at home like an idiot, trying to save a marriage that had already been over for months. But the message that really got to me was from 3 days ago, the morning after our disastrous dinner. Rebecca describing the scene to David in excruciating detail, how I'd made this pathetically romantic dinner, how desperate and clueless I'd seemed, how she'd almost felt sorry for me until she remembered that she was finally free to be happy. She'd called my romantic gesture pathetically romantic to her boyfriend, using our shared credit card to pay for the phone that she used to mock the husband who'd spent 2 hours trying to show her how much he loved her. That was it. That was the moment I stopped feeling sorry for myself and started planning my revenge. See, Rebecca had made one crucial mistake. In her rush to start her new life, she'd gotten sloppy about covering her tracks. She'd left a digital trail that could destroy her professionally and personally, and she'd been using marital assets to fund an affair, which was going to make her divorce a lot more expensive than she'd anticipated. But more importantly, she'd underestimated me. She'd assumed that Jake Morrison was just going to roll over and accept his fate like a good little husband. She'd figured I'd be too hurt, too shocked, too devastated to fight back effectively. She was wrong. The next morning was Saturday. Rebecca texted me around 10 to let me know she'd be by later to pick up more of her things. She asked me to make sure I wasn't there when she came by, as if my presence in my own house would be an inconvenience for her. I texted back that I'd be running errands and would make sure to give her space. Then I drove to Kinko's and printed out every text message, every email, every piece of evidence I'd collected over the past week. The stack of papers was nearly 2 inches thick. I organized it chronologically, highlighted the most damaging sections, and put together a comprehensive timeline of Rebecca's affair. Next, I made copies, lots of copies. One set went to my lawyer, a guy named Tom Richardson who'd handled my business contracts for years. Tom was good at his job and had no patience for people who tried to cheat the system. He was going to love this case. Another set went into a safety deposit box at my bank. Evidence this valuable needed to be protected. But the most important copies were going to people who needed to know exactly what kind of person Rebecca really was. I started with Henderson and Associates Marketing. Rebecca and David's employer had a very strict policy about office relationships, particularly between senior employees and subordinates. David was technically Rebecca's junior in the company hierarchy, which made their affair not just adultery, but also a violation of corporate policy that could result in termination for both of them. I crafted a professional email to the HR department, complete with documentation showing that Rebecca and David had been conducting their affair during work hours, using company resources, and potentially creating a hostile work environment for other employees. I included screenshots of their text messages discussing sexual encounters in the office, their use of company credit cards for personal dinner dates, and Rebecca's admission that she'd been distracted at work because of her relationship with David. The email was sent to HR, the company president, and the managing partners. In a firm that prided itself on professionalism and family values, this kind of scandal was exactly the type of thing that could destroy 2 careers overnight. Next, I sent a carefully worded message to Rebecca's family, her parents, her sister, her brother, even her grandmother, who still sent us Christmas cards every year. I didn't include the explicit text messages. I had some class, but I did provide a factual account of Rebecca's affair, including dates, locations, and financial evidence of her betrayal. Rebecca had always been the golden child in her family, the successful daughter who'd married well and seemed to have everything figured out. Her parents had always treated me like I'd won the lottery when I married their perfect daughter. They were about to learn that their perfect daughter was a cheating liar who'd been using her husband's money to conduct an affair with a younger man. I also sent copies to our mutual friends. Every couple we'd socialize with, every person who'd attended our wedding, every friend who'd ever made a comment about what a perfect couple we were. Some of them probably suspected something was going on, but most of them were going to be blindsided by the truth. David wasn't forgotten either. I found his parents' contact information through social media and sent them a polite but detailed account of their son's affair with a married woman. David's father was apparently a respected businessman in Dallas, the kind of man who valued integrity and family values. He was going to be thrilled to learn that his son was sleeping with someone else's wife. I also sent the information to David's ex-girlfriend, a woman named Sarah, who'd posted several bitter comments on social media about their breakup 6 months ago. Something told me she'd be very interested to learn that her ex was the type of man who pursued married women. But the real masterpiece was what I did with their social media accounts. Remember how Rebecca had been backing up her work laptop to our shared iCloud account? Well, that backup included her saved passwords for all her social media accounts. And David, being the trusting soul he was, had shared his passwords with Rebecca so she could help him manage his Instagram account. I had access to everything. I started with Rebecca's Facebook account. She had over 800 friends, family members, colleagues, high school classmates, neighbors, everyone who'd been part of her life over the past decade. Her recent posts had been carefully curated to hide her affair, showing just enough marital discord to set up her eventual divorce announcement without revealing the real reason. That was about to change. I crafted a heartfelt post from Rebecca's account, confessing to her affair and apologizing for the lies she'd told to cover it up. I included details about how the affair had started, how she'd been using marital funds to support her relationship with David, and how sorry she was for betraying everyone who had trusted her. The post went live at 2 p.m. on Saturday, right when most people would be checking social media during their weekend downtime. Within minutes, the comments started pouring in. Shock, disappointment, anger from friends and family members who couldn't believe what they were reading. Rebecca's sister called her a disgrace. Her college roommate said she was ashamed to have ever known her. Her own mother commented that she'd raised her daughter better than this. I did the same thing with David's Instagram account. A long, detailed confession about his affair with a married woman, complete with apologies to his family and friends for his lack of integrity. I tagged Rebecca in several of the posts, making sure their relationship was clearly documented for anyone who might have missed it. The response was immediate and brutal. David's ex-girlfriend Sarah shared his confession post with a comment about how she'd always known he was a cheater. His college fraternity brothers were roasting him in the comments. Even his own mother commented that she was disappointed in the man he'd become. But I wasn't done yet. The real revenge was still coming. Around 4 p.m., Rebecca showed up at our house to collect more of her belongings. I watched from my truck, parked down the street, as she pulled into our driveway. She was on her phone before she'd even gotten out of the car, probably fielding calls from family and friends who'd seen her social media confession. I gave her 15 minutes to get inside and start packing. Then I called the house phone. She answered on the second ring. Jake? Thank God. Someone hacked my Facebook account and no one hacked your account, Rebecca. Silence. What do you mean? I mean, I posted all of that, every word, every detail about your affair with David, every lie you told me, every dollar of our money you spent on him. I made sure everyone in your life knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You can't do that. That's illegal. Actually, it's not. You gave me access to your accounts when you asked me to set up the iCloud backup, and everything I posted was true. Truth isn't defamation, Rebecca. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. Jake, you don't understand. This is going to ruin everything. My job, my relationships with my family. Your job is already ruined. I sent all the evidence of your affair to HR at Henderson and Associates this morning. Having sex with a subordinate during work hours tends to violate most company policies. You sent what to HR? Every text message, every email, every piece of evidence showing that you and David have been conducting your affair on company time using company resources. I'm pretty sure sleeping with junior employees is against the code of conduct you signed when you got promoted to senior account manager. Jake, please. You're destroying my life. No, Rebecca. You destroyed your life when you decided to cheat on your husband with some kid from your office. You destroyed it when you spent 4 months lying to me while using our money to finance your affair. You destroyed it when you stood in our kitchen and told me our marriage was cute, but you were going out with your boyfriend. I could hear her starting to cry, but I felt no sympathy. Not after what she'd put me through. All I did was make sure people knew the truth about who you really are. But David didn't do anything wrong. He's not married. He doesn't deserve to have his life ruined. David pursued a married woman, helped her lie to her husband for months, and encouraged her to break up her marriage. He deserves whatever he gets. Jake, please, I'm begging you, delete the posts. I'll do anything. Anything? Really? Yes, anything. Okay, I want you to come home. I want you to end your affair with David. I want you to quit your tote and find work somewhere else. I want marriage counseling, and I want you to sign a post-nuptial agreement that says if you ever cheat on me again, You get nothing in a divorce. The silence stretched on for nearly a minute. I can't do that, she finally whispered. Why not? Because I don't love you anymore, Jake. I love David. I can't just pretend that didn't happen. Then I guess you'll have to live with the consequences of your choices. I hung up and drove home. By the time I got there, Rebecca was gone. She'd left the house key on the kitchen counter along with a note that simply said, I'm sorry. Too little, too late. Over the next few days, the fallout was spectacular. Rebecca was fired from Henderson and Associates on Monday morning, along with David. The company's zero-tolerance policy for workplace affairs was apparently not just for show. Rebecca's family disowned her. Her parents changed their will to remove her as a beneficiary. Her sister refused to take her calls. Even her grandmother sent a scathing letter about how disappointed she was in her granddaughter's behavior. David's life wasn't much better. His father cut off his trust fund and demanded he move out of the downtown apartment that Daddy had been paying for. His ex-girlfriend, Sarah, had posted their private breakup texts showing that David had been cheating on her too, which destroyed his reputation with their mutual friends. The best part was watching their social media accounts over the following weeks. Both Rebecca and David tried to control the narrative, posting explanations and justifications for their behavior. But the internet never forgets, and screenshots of their affair confession posts kept circulating no matter how many times they deleted them. Rebecca tried to reach out to me several times. Emails, texts, even showing up at my office one day begging me to help her fix the mess I'd created. But I was done. I'd given her 7 years of my life, and she'd thrown it away for 3 months of excitement with a younger man. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Thanks to the evidence of her adultery and financial infidelity, Rebecca got almost nothing. No alimony, no claim to my retirement accounts, no share of the house equity. She got to keep her car and her personal belongings, and that was it. The last I heard, she was working as a receptionist at a small marketing firm in San Antonio, making about a third of what she used to earn. David moved back in with his parents and was working at his uncle's insurance agency, a far cry from the high-powered career he'd been building in Austin. They broke up about 3 months after the divorce was final. Apparently, love doesn't last long when you're both unemployed and living with your parents. As for me, I kept the house, rebuilt my savings, and started dating again about a year later. I met a wonderful woman named Jennifer who appreciates romantic dinners and doesn't think loyalty is something you can just discard when someone more exciting comes along. Rebecca made one final attempt to contact me about 6 months ago. She sent a long letter apologizing for everything, saying she'd made a terrible mistake and asking if there was any way we could reconcile. She said she'd realized that what she had with David wasn't real love, just infatuation, and that she missed the stability and security of our marriage. I read the letter once, then threw it in the trash. Some mistakes you don't get to take back, some betrayals can't be forgiven, and some people don't deserve second chances. Rebecca thought she could have her cake and eat it too. She thought she could string me along while she explored her options, then discard me when she found something better. She thought she could control the narrative and manage the fallout from her choices. She was wrong about all of it. The dinner was cute, Rebecca, but my revenge was instant.